Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. ISRO added another feather to its cap on Monday, successfully launching India's heaviest communications satellite, the GSAT-19, aboard homegrown GSLV Mark III rocket. The rocket, weighing 640 tons and standing at 43.43 meters, successfully lifted off at 5:28 p.m. from the second launch pad at the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. The rocket carried along into space the GSAT-19 communication satellite, weighing 3,136 kilograms, to an altitude of around 179 kilometers above the Earth after just over 6 minutes into the flight. This is the heaviest satellite to be launched on an indigenous rocket. It is expected that one day it will also successfully carry astronauts to space. Up until now, ISRO had to depend on foreign launchers for communication satellites weighing more than 2,300 kilograms. The GSLV Mark III D1 is capable of lifting payloads of up to 44,000 kilograms into the geosynchronous transfer orbit and 10,000 kilograms into the low Earth orbit. Monday's launch is being hailed as a turning point in the Indian space journey. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze what makes ISRO so successful. Joining me on the program today are scientist Gauhar Raza, Ajay Lele, Research Fellow, ITSA, R. Ramachandran of the Frontline Magazine, Chandrabhushan Devgan, President, Space Foundation NGO. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on The Big Picture. Mr. Raza, it's a day to be extremely proud. ISRO has done us proud yet again. Before we get into what makes ISRO so successful, let's talk about today's success and what it means for ISRO and the country.
There are two things that have to be kept in mind. That a lot of people have said during this period that India has not done anything during 70 years, past 70 years. This is yet again a proof that India has done very well during these 70 years. We have achieved this zenith just because people, scientists and the leadership, political leadership, at one point of time when we were very, very poor country, thought that one day we'll have a GSAT launch of this kind, which we'll celebrate, which will also show to the world that we have been able to excel in science and technology. This particular launch is a new beginning in the sense that we will have those capabilities which very few countries, in fact 3 other countries had. We will touch the new horizons, both of science and technology and space. And one should remember that success in one area of science always triggers scientific and new scientific endeavors in many other areas, newer areas. Therefore, those countries which started much ahead of us are still ahead of us and are known for their successes in various fields of science.
But we are fast catching up, aren't we?
We are fast catching up, and it will trigger a lot of scientific activity in the country, despite people trying to take us back into darkness where scientific temper is an enemy for some people.
Sure.
We will have scientific temper in the country, and new generations, their imaginations will be triggered by this very great success.
Sure, fair enough. That's a very valid point that you're making about how this success could be taken to different streams within science itself. We'll get to that as well in just a bit, but we'll talk about the GSLV Mark III for now. R. Ramachandran, as far as this particular mission itself is concerned, it's been a tremendous success. The President, the Prime Minister, the entire nation is congratulating ISRO for what has happened just now. What this does is that we're going to be far more self-reliant going forward, aren't we?
Sure, very much so, because hitherto we have been depending upon procured launches for launching satellites above 1.5 tons. Anything above 1.5 tons, we had to resort to launches like the Ariane from the Arianespace of France and so on. Now we have the capability to go and take satellites into the geosynchronous orbit, from where we have to position our communication satellites in particular, and that gives us the capability of having more communication channels available to the public of India across various uses of communications like satellite, it's like television channels, our telephone communications and so on and so forth. In particular, the 2-ton class of satellite that we are launching till now could accommodate only to the maximum about 48 transponders, 34 transponders. Now we can hope to put in about 48 transponders in each of these big satellites that we are hoping to launch from now on. And that gives us a lot more communication capability within the country. And the demand for transponders is only increasing day by day from television channels and other kinds of communication avenues that we have now today. So in all, we have a complete autonomous capability in space technology, whether it be propellant manufacture, whether it be satellite manufacture, whether it be launch capability up to 4-ton class satellites and so on. So we don't have to rely on any other space power to do our job, right? And it also costs us immensely. Any launch from abroad was costing up to about $100 million per launch and above. Okay, now we can do that in under $40 million. Okay, that's the kind of difference that we are seeing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we may still have to use the launch pads abroad considering the timing and all of that.
No. We don't have to use launch pad. Launch pad will be from ours only for when our radars cannot communicate directly with the satellite when it goes above the horizon. We have to depend upon other kind of networks in the radar network in the world around, such as NASA and so on and so forth, to keep track of the satellite being maneuvered into its orbit. So that's when we require the help of other networks. Otherwise, launch pads are fully capable. We have 2 launch pads to launch our launch vehicles from, the rockets from, and that is more than sufficient for the time being. And we should hope for actually being able to launch not just 1 or 2 GSLVs Mark III per year, but more than that.
Okay.
Because to cater to the demands of the country, we need much more launches than 1 or 2 per year.
Fair enough. We'll get to that in just a bit. But before that, let me get my other guests into the picture as well. Ajay Lele, Group Captain, of course, for retired Group Captain. Captain, as far as the defense of this country is concerned and the defense sector itself is concerned, does this particular successful launch contribute to that? How is it going to help the defense sector if it does?
I think from defense perspective, one has to take a holistic picture. As far as India's defense preparedness is concerned, Indian Navy has got a satellite which was launched few years back. And if you could remember, at that point in time, since we never had indigenous launching capability, we had to depend on Ariane space for launching even India's first strategic satellite. So from that perspective, I will say that in coming years, when India is proposing to launch a separate satellite individually for Indian Army and Indian Navy also, and Indian Air Force also, definitely this boosts India's ambitions to have its own indigenously developed and indigenously launched satellites for the defense purposes out into the space. Because communication is key to any sort of a defense establishment, and by developing our capabilities in a GSLV launching system, India is now inching towards launching its own satellites for the communication purposes, be it both civilian or for the military purposes.
Sure, fair enough. Let me get in Chandrabhushan Devgan as well. What the launch of GSLV Mark III also does, or the successful launch of the rocket, shows us that we can move our space technology commercially as well and use other countries and use our rockets, in fact, for commercial purposes, isn't it?
Before we go into these technicalities, I'm agreeing with Gohar Raza that it's not just a 2 or 3 years effort of our scientists and technologists to get this GSLV done. It has been decades of progress made by them in spite of the restrictions given by the sanctions given by the Russia and the US when we did the nuclear blast. But we did it on our own, and after that, after doing the workhorse which we call the PSLV, which could take about 1400 kg into the GESO orbit, but now we have the capability of put a bigger satellite into the geostationary orbit, which we need these days now, because all the telecommunication, direct to home communications, or let's say telemedicine, all these things are there in our hand now, and we don't have to depend on the other countries to launch our rockets. And as we have already discussed, that it would be less of a cost to us, because we will not lose our foreign revenue to do these things. So it's a great achievement that we have done this with our GSLV, with the cryogenic engine which we have developed for the last around 15-20 years. Because of the sanctions, we couldn't do it earlier. So I think it's a great leap for the Indian space industry, where we can do our own launches on our own without the help of the foreign launchers.
Sure, fair enough. That's a point that has been made earlier on the program as well. So let's move ahead and talk about, the success of ISRO as such. Initially, ISRO had to struggle a lot, Mr. Raza, and you being from the science fraternity know what the struggles really were of ISRO. But then today, it is a grand success. What is it that has made ISRO so successful?
See, there are two things which we need to remember. One, that we have started with almost nothing in hand, no experience, and that was cycle era, the bullock cart era, as a lot of ISRO scientists recollect that era. From there, we have 2 launch pads, which are grand if you look at them. Now, the other thing that is very, very important, and we should remember that, is that most of the elite institutions in the country did not send their pass-outs to ISRO. It was from Mufassil area. It was a small colleges and universities, most of them unknown to the nation and abroad, from where the young minds came. They were trained, they were tried. And the motto was, if anybody can do it, we can do it cheaper, we can do it better. This motto inspired generations of scientists within ISRO. The result is, and we can conclude by saying that if we use our own brains within the country, even if they are from second-rate, third-rate institutions, we can do it. Most of the elite institutions, people have fed the best of the minds probably in those institutions, have fed international community, international institutions. Most of these young ones have migrated to Russia, to Australia, wherever. This mission mode, which ISRO inculcated right from the beginning as culture, is giving us dividends today. Therefore, public funding of education is extremely important. Public funding so that we can pick and choose the best of the minds, not from one institution, 2 institutions, but many institutions across the country. Train them to do what ISRO has done today. A large number of institutions have been doing first-rate work. Recognize them. Because if you do not create scientific temper within the society, if you do not acknowledge work of our scientists, then scientists also lose confidence. I do not know a single channel which runs today a full-time program, even 1-hour program on science. But there are lots of channels which have been running programs which are anti-science. Their number is very, very large. Put together, such a gigantic country does not run even one channel which is dedicated to science. We should be celebrating today this big success and event and telling people nuances of how scientists do their work and how they achieve such a success. So, the point that I am trying to make is the question is much picker.
Sure.
Achieving success in only one area is extremely important. It triggers a lot of other things, impacts other areas, because without achieving excellence in the area of maybe materials, you cannot do what you have done.
Sure. You know,
Without excelling in electronics, you can't do it. Without raising the bar of the standards that you have to achieve in order to launch a vehicle like this, you can't do it.
Sure.
So physics, chemistry, mathematics, etc., every area gets a boost. When you do it.
It does get a boost, but yet, R. Ramachandran, we see that the other sectors are not moving forward the same way that ISRO is. Somewhere they seem to be lacking behind. What is the issue really?
See, the question is mainly of leadership. The success of ISRO actually critically dependent on the kind of leadership it has had over decades. Okay, starting from Sarabhai, Satish Dhawan, and so on. People who had grand vision that we should be able to do it ourselves. That kind of vision, not just that yes, we can put together systems and so on, but a cohesive approach to developing things, not from the low end to the high end. I mean, Sarabhai thought it all the way through, and Satish Dhawan just implemented it in full grandeur. Okay, that's the kind of vision one should have, and should be able to bring together with that kind of vision, so that the people also recognize that vision and are able to contribute it effectively. Okay, and put in a management structure in the whole vertical hierarchy of ISRO institutions, that the entire set of scientists there know what is happening where, who is doing what, and so on and so forth, and interact with each other so intimately that everything works together like in a clockwork. That's what has been the hallmark of ISRO, and being able to achieve things, well, may not be all the time in time, but in the sense that fairly well put together, all programs and project oriented and so on and so forth. You assign a project leader for a particular project. As soon as the project gets over, close down that book. It's a zero budgeting system which has worked all through in ISRO projects, and that kind of budgeting, that kind of planning, and that kind of management structure still lacks in most of our institutions. We lack that kind of a visionary approach to attack a missionary mode project and implement it effectively. And that, I think, still is a lesson to be learned by all institutions.
Sure.
Okay, now ISRO has gone a step forward. He mentioned about nurturing students from institutions from all over the country. Now ISRO has put together an institution of its own, the Indian Institute of Space Technology in Trivandrum. Now, so that trains students who pass out of colleges, okay, directly into the space technology sector. So you have a ready-made captive student population who are willing to join your organization. So that kind of approach, like it was followed in Department of Atomic Energy, their training school, both follow a very similar kind of approach in managing high technology projects. And that's why they have been successful.
So retaining talent will not be a problem going forward, because you have your own talent pool.
They really don't depend on these elite institutions, which often, export their potential
So that's
abroad.
the way forward as far as the other sciences are concerned as well, is what you're saying. Yeah, true. That's a very valid point that you're making there. Chandrabhushan Devgan, as far as a point that was being made earlier about how ISRO has been tremendously successful in not just carrying out several of these missions, but also ensuring that it is extremely cost effective. The Mars Orbiter mission was one such very good example, where it was carried out for a fairly reasonable price for a launch of or for a mission of that magnitude.
When we talk about mission and about the cost of the missions, we have to also look at what the payload is there in that launcher. As far as the Mars Orbiter mission is concerned, it was basically a technology demonstrator where we showed the world that we can actually send something as an interplanetary mission to a planet, but the payload was very small. So there I think that ISRO has to come out and think like opening up to the public also, in case of, right now it's a kind of a very a closed institution where they don't allow a lay person to get access to the data and get access to the what they call the public outreach, but they have been pushing the limits of the technology in India to greater heights, giving us the technology where we can send the spacecrafts into the space with less cost than rest of the world. But I think there we lack something where what we call, I think, the public relation or something like that, where we can actually involve people, lay person, to get access to the knowledge what they are doing right there. If you look at the NASA, I mean, they have so much to show it to the public when they show it as terms of their museums and all. But right now, when you have to access the data, or when you have to get an access to the launch over there, you have to still go through so many channels to get through that. So
Right.
there, I think we are lacking somewhere behind, where we could actually get more people interested, because as Mr. Gohar Raza said, that anything when we do in science, in pure science, that's actually the parameter of a progress of a country. If
Sure.
you're not doing any progress in the R&D, in the pure science, then we are not doing something else. And talk about the scientific temperament. If you are not getting the scientific temperament to the common people, then we are not getting it right across to the masses where we want it to be. So
Okay.
as far as the launches are concerned, we are doing extremely in the right direction, where we have to go to the low cost launches. But I think we should actually give more access to the public to get knowledge about ISRO and their doings.
Okay, fair enough. Your point well taken there. I've got time for one quick comment on the program, so I'm going to get Captain Lele in. Captain Lele, can India replicate ISRO's success in other fields of scientific knowledge?
Definitely. You see, when your voice was very low, but if you can gather correctly what you are asking about development of a scientific knowledge, I think ISRO is a trendsetter. We need to have many other organizations in India. We got success stories as far as Atomic Energy Commission is concerned, ISRO is concerned. But there are other scientific organizations who need to really pull up their socks and start doing better. There are problems from both the ends. There are the issues related to funding, there are issues related to motivation, there are issues related to applicability also. What happens is that if you don't make investments into basic sciences, you will not be able to develop your applied sciences. I think somewhere our focus appears to be slightly more on applied sciences. We need to bring back that focus on the basic sciences, because I think that is what the key is all about. It is difficult to develop basic sciences all of a sudden, and
Sure.
we need to continue with the process of making investments into basic sciences, and that will definitely give us a boost as far as applied sciences are concerned. And today's ISRO's mission essentially indicates a fact that we have done better into applied sciences. At the same time, when we talk of development of various sensors, various other organizations of ISRO which are working towards it,
Right.
there is a good amount of investments which has happened into basic sciences also. So ISRO is able to strike a balance between basic sciences and applied sciences. I think other scientific organizations need to do that.
Okay, very well summed up there for us as far as what the other sciences need to do and what ISRO is doing rightly. I'd like to thank all my guests at this point in time. Gohar Raza, Ajay Lele, R. Ramachandran, Chandrabhushan, Devgan. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have today. See you again next time.